Picture armor so revolutionary it erased the boundary between legend and truth, transforming common soldiers into mythical warriors. These extraordinary innovations disappeared without trace, yet their influence molded combat for generations to come. One possessed the ability to mend itself during battle. Another employed silk with such remarkable strength, it deflected arrows like contemporary Kevlar. A third granted warriors enhanced power, rendering them nearly invincible in warfare. Today we'll reveal 5 of history's most astounding armor pieces, each more remarkable than the previous. Armor Piece 1, the Mystery Metal. These weren't mere shields and helmets. These were breakthroughs so revolutionary they converted peasants into formidable warriors and dismantled empires in mere weeks. Transport yourself to 1500 BC. You're a soldier observing an enemy combatant advancing directly through a tempest of arrows. Not evading, not seeking shelter, simply advancing. Every projectile ricochets off him like rainfall. This genuinely occurred. The Mycenaeans had uncovered something unprecedented, a technique to transform bronze into something virtually impenetrable. But here's the peculiar aspect. Archaeological documentation reveals this armor vanished entirely, every single piece, as though someone deliberately erased it from existence. What was their motive? The armor bore the name Dendra panoply, complete body bronze articulated at every joint. You could execute acrobatic maneuvers in this equipment. Archaeologists examined reconstructions with fascinating results. A warrior in full Dendra armor could dash, ascend, even navigate water. Each component was forged from individual bronze sheets. No vulnerable points, no connections. The craftsmanship was so sophisticated, we couldn't duplicate it until the 1960s. Yet the genuine innovation wasn't the metal itself. It was the psychological warfare it enabled. Envision confronting an army where every soldier appears identical, invincible, otherworldly. The armor featured a deliberate design characteristic that made warriors seem taller, more imposing. Like deities of battle, enemy forces would abandon formation before combat even commenced. Historical chronicles describe soldiers discarding weapons at the mere appearance of these bronze warriors approaching. The Mycenaeans conquered substantial portions of Greece without engaging in major confrontations. Simply appearing was sufficient. Then something extraordinary occurred. Every civilization that encountered them began developing something unprecedented, a weapon specifically engineered to neutralize this armor. And it succeeded so effectively, it rendered the Dendra obsolete within one generation. That weapon? The rapier-like sword, slender enough to penetrate between plates. The arms race had commenced. But here's the revelation. The Mycenaeans anticipated this development. They were already developing something different, something that would render armor irrelevant. They never completed it. The Bronze Age collapse struck first. Every piece of Dendra armor was liquefied, except one concealed in a tomb, awaiting 3,000 years to be unearthed. When archaeologists discovered it, they identified something that shouldn't exist: modern tool marks. Someone had altered it recently. Testing disclosed the modifications were executed with techniques from the Renaissance era. Someone 500 years ago located this armor and attempted to reverse engineer it. They failed, but their endeavors led to something different. Documents in Vatican archives reference a devil's armor that materialized in northern Italy around 1510. Witnesses insisted arrows passed through the wearer without contact. This wasn't sorcery, it was physics. The armor utilized angled plates that generated optical illusions. Adversaries literally couldn't aim accurately. Their minds couldn't interpret where the armor concluded and air commenced. The Catholic Church prohibited it, denounced it as witchcraft. Every piece was allegedly annihilated, but the principle survived. 300 years later, someone perfected it. That individual was Napoleon's personal armorsmith. He manufactured exactly 3 sets. Napoleon Roar won at Waterloo. The other 2 disappeared until 2019 when one surfaced at a private auction. The purchaser, anonymous. The cost? $4,700,000. But here's the intriguing element. They didn't desire the armor. They wanted what was concealed inside it. A map carved into the interior plates. The map led to a burial location in Japan. What they discovered there was the second armor piece that altered history. And this one could stop bullets. Armor Piece 2, the impossible defense. In 400 AD, Japanese smiths manufactured something that contemporary science claims shouldn't exist. They named it O-Yoroi, but that's not what made it exceptional. It was what they positioned underneath it. Silk armor, 30 layers deep. Mongol arrows, the most dreaded projectiles of the ancient world, couldn't pierce it. The silk would envelop the arrowhead, capturing it like a mesh. You could extract arrows without harm. But that was merely the foundation. The samurai uncovered that if you immerse the silk in a particular solution, the formula remains classified by the Japanese government. It became harder than steel when impacted. Modern testing yields astounding results. This treated silk can halt low-velocity bullets. Consider that. Textile armor from 400 AD that functions like modern Kevlar, except it was also entirely flexible until the instant of impact. The Mongols conquered territories from China to Europe, except Japan, not due to storms, not because of divine wind, because their arrows were ineffective. Their complete military strategy, horse archers, was nullified by silk. But here's what historians don't reveal. The Mongols seized Japanese armor, analyzed it, attempted to replicate it. They couldn't. The silk treatment procedure required something discovered only in Japan. Spider silk from a specific spider that exists nowhere else. The Joro spider. Its silk is 5 times more resilient than regular silk. The samurai were cultivating these spiders in classified locations. Anyone who disclosed these locations faced execution, including family members. One samurai lord, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, wore armor with 47 layers of treated Joro silk beneath steel plates. Historical documentation claims he was struck with over 100 arrows in a single confrontation. He departed uninjured. His adversaries believed he was immortal. They initiated a cult around him. The psychological effect was catastrophic. Entire armies would capitulate rather than face someone who couldn't be eliminated. But Yoshitsune harbored a secret. The armor was gradually poisoning him. The spider silk treatment contained mercury. Every samurai who wore this armor eventually became insane. They called it the warrior's madness. They continued wearing it regardless because they discovered something else. In their madness, these warriors fought without fear, without hesitation. They became more lethal as they deteriorated. The armor wasn't merely protection. It was a metamorphosis. Modern examination of preserved armor reveals mercury concentrations that would kill a normal person in hours. But combined with other compounds in the treatment, it generated a slow-release effect, like a combat pharmaceutical that lasted years. The formula was lost when the final spider farm was obliterated in 1543. But recently, a Japanese university claimed they've partially deciphered it. They won't publish their discoveries. The military implications are too hazardous. What they did disclose, the process involves something else. Something that shouldn't have been known in 400 AD. Graphene, or at minimum a primitive form of it. The spiders were fed specific minerals that induced them to produce silk with carbon structures similar to graphene. The samurai had accidentally created a biological nanomaterial facility 1,200 years before we discovered graphene. But if you believe that's impossible, wait until you learn about the Roman armor that could repair itself. And I mean literally repair itself while you were wearing it. But before that, I genuinely need your assistance. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you appreciate these documentaries and want to support me, simply hit the subscribe button. It's complimentary. Armor Piece 3. The Living Metal. Marcus Aurelius documented soldiers whose armor regenerated after battle. Historians dismissed it as metaphor. They were mistaken. Roman legionaries in Britain uncovered something in the indigenous iron. When combined with blood, it did something impossible. The metal formed new crystals, self-healing armor. Scratches would vanish overnight. Fractures would seal themselves. Modern metallurgists can't explain it. But that's not the peculiar element. The armor only functioned for the original wearer. If someone else donned it, it would literally disintegrate. The Romans believed it was cursed. The reality was stranger. The blood created a chemical bond. The armor recognized its owner. DNA examination of surviving pieces reveals traces of human genetic material embedded in the metal structure. The armor was partially biological. Roman documentation mentions soldiers conversing with their armor, naming it, because it responded. Temperature modifications, flexibility adjustments. The armor adapted to threats. Soldiers reported it getting harder just before an arrow struck, like it knew. The secret was bacteria, specific strains that inhabit British bog iron. When combined with human blood, they create a symbiotic colony within the metal. The armor was alive. Romans stationed in Britain had a 300% higher survival rate than anywhere else in the empire. Not because of tactics, because of this living armor. But then soldiers started reporting nightmares, the same nightmare. Every soldier, they dreamed they were drowning in metal. Waking up, they'd find their armor had grown, new plates appearing overnight. The armor was evolving. One centurion, Lucius Artorius Castus, wore his armor for 20 years straight. Never removed it, couldn't remove it. It had fused with his skin. When he died, they attempted to remove the armor for burial. It wouldn't detach. The metal had grown into his bones. His skeleton was partially iron. Modern scans reveal his bone density was 3 times normal. He was becoming the armor. The Roman emperor banned this armor in 127 AD, ordered all pieces destroyed, but soldiers refused. They'd rather desert than surrender their living protection. Entire legions vanished into the British wilderness. Celtic legends speak of iron warriors who couldn't be killed, who didn't eat, didn't sleep, just patrolled ancient boundaries. Some claim they're still there. In 2018, metal detectorists found something. Roman armor, pristine, no corrosion, still flexible. When they tested the metal, they found something impossible. Active bacteria, still alive after 2,000 years. The armor was still growing. The British Museum has it in deep storage. They won't exhibit it. Workers report it makes sounds at night, creaking like breathing. One researcher touched it with bare skin. Within seconds, the metal started bonding with him. They had to use industrial solvents to remove it. He still has iron-colored scars where it touched. The bacteria are attempting to find a new host. But if living armor sounds like science fiction, the fourth piece makes it look primitive. Because this one didn't just protect the wearer, it made them superhuman. Armor Piece 4. The Strength Multiplier. Persian immortals weren't called that because they couldn't die. They were called that because of what their armor let them accomplish. Lift 500 pounds. Run for 3 days without rest. Leap over cavalry horses. This wasn't legend. Greek historians documented it. Multiple independent sources. The armor used a system of springs and counterweights, like an external muscular system. Every movement was amplified. Modern exoskeletons use the same principle, except this was 500 BC. But the real innovation wasn't mechanical. The armor contained tubes filled with a specific liquid. When compressed, it hardened. When released, it flowed. Non-Newtonian fluid. In ancient Persia, the fluid was manufactured from plant resins mixed with metallic particles. Under pressure, it could stop a spear. At rest, it was completely flexible. Persian immortals could dance in full armor. Alexander the Great captured this armor. His engineers spent years analyzing it. They discovered something that transformed warfare forever. The fluid contained opium derivatives, absorbed through the skin during combat. The harder you fought, the more pharmaceuticals entered your system. Pain disappeared, fatigue vanished. You literally couldn't stop fighting until you died. Persian records show immortals fighting for 72 hours straight. No food, no water, just continuous combat. When the armor was finally removed, they'd collapse. Most never woke up. The addiction rate was 100%. Once you wore the armor, you needed it. Without it, withdrawal killed you within days. The Persian Empire controlled its elite troops through chemical dependency. But that's not the darkest part. The armor changed your bones. The constant pressure and drug exposure caused rapid calcium deposits. Immortal skeletons were 40% denser than normal humans. They were literally becoming harder to kill. Archaeological evidence shows some immortals were over 7 feet tall. Not naturally. The armor's mechanical stress made their bones grow, like forced evolution. The Persian emperor had an army of artificial giants. When Persia fell, the secret of this armor was supposedly lost. But medieval alchemists' texts mention the Persian formula. The Knights Templar were searching for it. They found something. Templar knights' performance in battle defied logic. Dozens of knights defeating hundreds, moving in perfect synchronization, like they shared one mind. Maybe they did. Recently discovered Templar documents describe armor that united the Brotherhood. Wearers could sense each other's movements, feel each other's pain. The fluid contained psilocybin compounds, microdosing psychedelics through skin absorption. Combined with the pressure-activated opiates, the Templars had created combat armor that induced controlled hallucinations. Shared hallucinations. They thought as one organism. When the French king destroyed the Templars, he specifically ordered all armor melted down, except one set. He kept it for himself. That armor disappeared during the French Revolution. But the technology didn't die. Because the fifth and final piece of revolutionary armor took everything that came before and perfected it. Armor Piece 5, the ultimate evolution. The year is 1415, the Battle of Agincourt. English knights are outnumbered 5-1. They should have been slaughtered. They won decisively. French witnesses claimed the English were demons in steel. Arrows bounced off them. Swords shattered against them. This wasn't normal plate armor. The English had developed something called white armor. Not because of its color, but because of what it was made from. A metal that shouldn't have existed for another 500 years. Spring steel with carbon nanostructures. Medieval smiths had accidentally discovered that burning specific woods with iron created microscopic carbon tubes in the metal. The armor was 90% lighter, but 200% stronger. A full suit weighed less than modern riot gear. Knights could run full speed, swim in armor. One account describes a knight climbing a castle wall in full plate using only his gauntleted hands. The metal gripped stone like claws. But here's where it gets strange. This armor was only made in one location, a monastery in northern England. The monks who made it took vows of silence. They never revealed the process. When Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries, he sent soldiers to seize the armor-making facility. They found it empty. The furnaces destroyed. The monks had vanished. But they left something behind. Scratched into the walls, mathematical equations, molecular diagrams, knowledge that wouldn't be discovered until the Industrial Revolution. The monks knew exactly what they were doing. Carbon dating of surviving armor shows impossible results. Some pieces contain isotopes that suggest they were made using nuclear processes in the 1400s. One theory, the monks found something. Roman texts mention star metal that fell in Britain. Meteoric iron with unique properties. The armor might be partially extraterrestrial. Modern testing revealed traces of iridium, an element rare on Earth but common in asteroids. The monks were working with materials from space, and they knew it. Their equations describe orbital mechanics, planetary alignments. They were tracking when more star metal would fall. They were waiting for supplies. The last documented use of this armor was 1513, the Battle of Flodden. English forces, outnumbered 3-1, suffered virtually no casualties. Scottish arrows and swords were useless. After that battle, the armor disappeared. Every piece. Overnight, like the Dendra panoply 3,000 years before. Someone was collecting it. In 1969, Neil Armstrong's personal effects included a medieval gauntlet. He claimed it was a family heirloom. NASA tested it. It was made of the same material as their heat shields. 5 pieces of armor. 5 technologies that shouldn't have existed. All mysteriously disappeared. All supposedly destroyed. But military contractors have been studying anomalous historical metallurgy since the 1950s. They found something. But that's a story that's still classified. If you want more untold history that changes everything you thought you knew, click on the channel icon and hit subscribe.